when women are leading companies, when women are leading countries, and when women are at negotiating tables, the results for climate and nature are more positive.
Hi, welcome to Resonate, Conversations and Life Lessons from Rancho La Puerta. I'm your host, Barry. This year, the ranch is celebrating its 85th birthday, and sustainability and the health of our planet has been part of our DNA since the very beginning. Longevity is a hot topic these days, with people living longer and healthier lives. But the longevity of our planet is instrumental if any of this is going to work out and make sense. We are excited to have a week focused on sustainability here at the ranch. The week is September 27th. And we'll feature incredible women who are advocating for a healthy planet. The lineup of presenters is amazing, and today I get to interview two of these women, Pat Mitchell and Ronda Carnegie. Both Pat and Ronda helped to found Project Dandelion, a woman-led global campaign for climate justice. Pat Mitchell has been a trailblazer for women in media. She has worked for the Turner Corporation and in 1994 did a documentary called A Century of Women. She served as president of the Turner Original Productions and CNN Productions. Pat was the first woman president and CEO of PBS. She has been nominated for an Academy Award, has won Emmys and Peabody Awards. She is in the Broadcasting and Cable Hall of Fame and has the first annual Lifetime Achievement Award from Women's Media Center. She is also an author and wrote a book called Becoming Dangerous Women. Ronda Carnegie has an impressive media resume as well. She was with Condé Nast for 20 years and launched Condé Nast Portfolio, which is their business magazine. Ronda has been an associate publisher for The New Yorker. She helped create TED Institute, co-founded TED Women, and has been instrumental in building the TED Talk brand. I'm a little intimidated, but very excited to speak with both of these women. Hi, welcome to Resonate. I'm so delighted to have you both here. So I have Ronda Carnegie and Pat Mitchell, and you're going to be here the week of September 27th with our first ever. We're doing Women in Sustainability at Rancho La Puerta, and we are so excited to have you guys here and the lineup of amazing women. So, so is it true you both founded the organization Project Dandelion?
Along with two other partners who aren't on the call today, Hafsat Abiola, who is a Nigerian democracy leader, and Mary Robinson, who was the first woman president of Ireland, former chair of the elders, and well-known global activist for climate justice and human rights.
Yeah, no, I've listened to so many of her things. She's amazing. It makes me so grateful that my mom's maiden name is O'Sheehan. So tell us what you both have different backgrounds, and what made you interested in the climate and Project Dandelion, starting such an organization?
Yeah, well, let's start off with the dandelion as a symbol, because that is one of the reasons why we come together. So when we think of just this vivid image, and both Pat and I are wearing our Project Dandelion
I'd
pins,
say that,
so
yeah.
just imagine, yes, a dandelion bursting in yellow, and really the resilience of the dandelion. We know that the dandelion grows everywhere. It grows on every continent. It's resilient. It's of nature. And every part of it is, it's medicinal. You can eat it. And so we love this idea of really thinking about women and the extraordinary work that they're doing in on the front lines of climate. And we love that the dandelion grows everywhere and it seeds and spreads with the wind. So that's a great sort of way to think about the symbol as we think about how we began Project Dandelion.
Yeah, your question is really one we get often because, while 89% of the world is concerned now about the nature and climate crisis and knows it's the biggest existential threat of our time and it's connected to every other issue, they still don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
I think I would have put myself in that category. I come from a family of environmentalists and conservationists. So you think I would have, figured out my role, but my role in the world as an activist had always been focused on gender equity and gender justice. So when Mary Robinson started to talk to the two of us at one of our Connected Women Leaders meetings, because Rhonda and I started these forums at Bellagio with the Rockefeller Foundation that were called Connected Women Leaders. And the idea was a very simple one. Bring together women leaders across geography, across generations, who don't know each other, who don't work together. They are in siloed sectors. Bring them together, put them in a room at Bellagio, give them 4 days and a couple of challenges, and they'll problem solve. So one of the challenges we were looking at was climate, but we also had gender equity and food security and global health and women's representation. But at the end of our second one of these gatherings, Mary came to the two of us and said, you can't practice equality on a dead planet. And we've got to heal the planet first. We've got to have a clean, healthy environment for the future. Or none of these other issues these challenges can be fulfilled. So that's how it started with her challenge to us that we take our gender equity and gender justice work and recognize how connected it was to climate justice and work with her to create not a new organization as such, but a new movement, and a movement that would unite all of the women leaders who were on the front lines leading this work. But as we quickly found out, even though women were the most negatively impacted by climate and nature catastrophes and disasters, they were not being supported, resourced, or even seen to be the leaders that they were. So Project Dandelion started with those three things.
What year did you guys start?
2019.
Wow. So it's a pretty recent thing. And I also love something that you said, because it's all interconnected. And I love how you said, all these people have all these causes and issues, but if there's no planet, it all goes away. It doesn't make any sense. The other thing that I love about your organization is I read that it's called a global campaign for climate justice. You're not calling it climate crisis. You're calling it climate justice. Why? That's intentional, I imagine.
Well, Mary wrote the book. Mary actually coined the phrase climate justice many years ago.
I mean, I think the justice piece of it, what we're all working for is a climate safe world. And justice just gives us a chance to design the future we want to go to and to get there quickly by understanding that those who are most affected on the front line, that we need to design this new way of thinking with them in mind. And justice talks about human rights at the center of that work, and really thinks about, those who are privileged, those who are in different places and what that means. So I think justice is, as a part of that, is layered through this work, just understanding that when we say we want a climate safe world that is livable for all, what is that if you are in India and temperatures are rising at such a fast pace and other places of the world versus people who might be willing or have the opportunity to adapt in a different way. So it is very much part of all of our backgrounds and our work to be able to design this in a way with equity and equality as a part of it.
I've read before too that the people that are affected the most by climate change, hunger, all the issues that even climate brings are not the people that are contributing to the problem for the most part.
Right.
Which is not, it's not fair. That's where the word justice comes in, I imagine, right?
Exactly. Just, yeah. Where is that in terms of how we're thinking about it? And I think that we see this in the global South, certainly.
Yeah.
And, there's also, a feeling that, everyone has to hold hands to solve for this. So it is that. I think that you make a really good point there about sort of how we enter in and where people can be involved in this work?
We're very close to a clean energy future. And we actually have all the technology we need in the world to move out of this oil and fossil fuel dependent world, which is killing us, to move to a clean, renewable, healthy environment. But if we don't do it in a way that serves those who are already the most impacted and who had, as you say, the least to do with the problem, the poisoning of our world, we have to do it in a way that serves them equally well. And that's not always been the focus of all climate organizations. All of the work is important, but we wanted to look at it through that lens in particular, the lens of justice, so that all the other issues from migrant justice to land rights justice to immigrant justice to indigenous justice, that all of that was interconnected and considered in any solutions that we would put forward.
I mean, this is probably really an oversimplification, but I have acquaintances that they were like, I bought a Tesla, so I think I'm doing my part. It's just kind of like, it's so much more than that people are thinking about.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to something that's really, really important. And that's that people want to understand the way into this work. Sometimes we make this so complicated. I think many times Pat and I are on the phone calls with various people, certainly the people in the finance world or the people in the tech world, and they make it so complicated that the everyday consumer says, okay, but I bought a Tesla. Like, what more do you want me to do? Like, it's really an understanding of what our individual contributions are. And at the same time, the fossil fuel companies have done a really good job to individualize this. It's not about the collective. It's about the individual. So what happens when we think about Project Dandelion is one of our missions is to get 3 billion people off the sidelines to understand what they can do besides just, buying a Tesla or hopefully maybe not a Tesla, but something else. But
I was gonna say, could we not push them to buy a Tesla?
Yeah, it's electric. Electric as like that's one thing to do. But there's so many things we're learning just in the food system and all of these things that people can do. And the Dandelion is that way in of helping people to be educated about all those things we can do. That's such a great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
The relative point that you made earlier, too, about what people know and don't know and where the miscommunication is contributing to the fact that people are staying on the sidelines because they're so confused by the messaging. And that's understandable when the fossil fuel industry is spending $4 billion a year, each of those companies, to keep the message confused, to miscommunicate the facts, actually. So one of the mission elements of what we took up as a challenge is shifting that narrative not only to the truth and finding ways to get the facts and the truth out through breakthrough narratives and storytelling. And that's part of what we've done too. And part of what we're going to talk about at Rancho La Puerta is, telling the stories of the solutions we're seeing everywhere, the stories that give us inspiration and hope. Because if we don't have hope that we can make a difference, then we're not going to get involved. You've got to have hope to inspire and ignite action.
Yeah, you fell right into one of my next things I was going to talk about. But I also want to go back before I forget about the hope thing is you mentioned 3 billion people is what you want to get to. Do you think that's not well, we have almost 8 billion people on the planet right now, but those 3 billion people, are those the people you think are in the position that can actually make the change?
I'm so glad you asked that question because, we believe in tipping points, about Gladwell and the whole idea of tipping points and what is that percentage that you can tip things. And so when we look at Project Dandelion as a women-powered movement, and we look at how many women there are on the earth, and we take a percentage of that, we come out at the 3 billion. So when we think about what is that tipping point moment, if women were to drive that change, then that's what that looks like. So it's a great equation to do that. And certainly there's lots of ways that we can look at the numbers, just in the sheer numbers, let's say, of rural women in India that are part of a group that we're partnering with called Sewa. Right there is 3 million. So when we begin to
Wow.
think about how we're building what we call either network of networks or movements of movements, where we have this opportunity to bring women together and for them to understand, that's how we got at that number. But it's a great question.
Yeah, and I like something you said, Pat, about you guys do it with telling stories, and I think that's important because it makes it really personal for people and makes it relatable for people to hear about actual other people that are making a difference. The other thing that I love about your organization is that hope is a big part of it, because I know that a lot of the messaging we get, false or not, is that, it's too late, we've passed this point, just enjoy your life because it's all going to go to hell. Do you know what I mean? Instead of, we still can have a safe world if we act now, and we all need to act now. But people don't know how, like you said, or what they should do. They get paralyzed with, fear.
But that is the message, and fear paralyzes us.
Right.
And really, it is the fear, and it's a challenge for all of us working in the climate and nature space to find solutions. It's a challenge between pointing out the urgency, because it is urgent. We don't have to sit back and enjoy our lives and just forget that there is a crisis threatening a habitable planet. That is real. And when you look at the science, as Mary likes to say, you can't negotiate with science. It says we're in trouble, and we've got 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries that we've already gone beyond where we should be. But it's not too late to bring it back. And it's not too late to keep those 3 areas that we haven't totally transgressed. And we like to point out the story of the ozone layer initiative. Not that many years ago, when we heard about the ozone layer and it was going to smother us all and do away with oxygen and there was no going back, a very small group in the beginning of scientists got together, and then they engaged others and they engaged others, and they got people to tell the stories, and the connections between all the different organizations started, and we turned that around. And I say we because everybody had a contribution to make by the products we were using and choosing not to use them. Well, the same thing is true now. We have an opportunity. We still got a window. And so Project Dandelion is focusing people on what that window is and what actions you can take to get us from here to that clean future. And it is on our watch.
Now, you brought up the point that there's still 3 areas that we can make a difference. What are those 3 areas?
Oh, dear, I knew you'd ask me that. We're not scientists. So you'll have to go to the Planetary Guardians website.
Okay.
And there is a group called Planetary Guardians, which Mary is also one of the founders of, one of the Guardians. So we see these presentations. Rob, do you have it on top of mind?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I just wanted to comment just on what, Pat was saying, that we really believe that hope is a practice. It is a practice which speaks about what it is that you can do. And so, we think about hope in our community, whether you're women planting trees or young people demanding change. Those are all practice. But some of the things that we say that you can do is that you can talk about climate at every opportunity. You can make a connection between your work and what's happening in climate. So you can make that connection, whether it's something you're doing in the home where you're doing something with your food waste, or what are you doing? Like you gave that one example, but there's many. How are you talking about it on social media? Where are you banking? Are you aware that you're doing business with those people who are supporting the environment? And how are you amplifying the voices of women doing the work? Those are just some of the things what we try to say. And Pat will talk about what her and Mary talk about making it very tangible. Pat?
Yeah, I do want to correct my answer to your one of those 3 boundaries. the fact is, Planetary Guardians was established to do just that, to point out the science. But the science alone has never, ever moved people to act. And so it's going to take us taking the science and interpreting it in ways that are through personal stories that will move people to act. So that's how we're working closely with Planetary Guardians to take the science and to tell those stories. And I do recommend checking out the Earth Health Report. Isn't that what it's called, Rhonda? The Planet Health Report?
It's called the Planetary Health Check.
Planetary Health Check.
Yeah, it's the Planetary Health
just to
Check,
know.
and it shows you where we're crossing, let's say, the boundaries in oceans, where once you move over and you track over in oceans becoming more acidic, what begins to happen. So it is this planetary health check, which they'll be doing each and every year to give us a chance to see what is happening to the planet.
And oceans is one of the areas, right, where we haven't done it yet, but we are getting closer and closer. But that was one of the reasons Mary wanted to form a different movement and to bring us into this, is because science just wasn't doing it. And giving people the doom message of it's over, there's nothing we can do. So we're trying to do quite the opposite in the stories we tell and in the inspiration that we put forward. There's plenty we can do, from the small to the big to the getting engaged in the bigger organization to supporting. And as Rhonda said, talking about it. One of the communities that we reached out to, which was sort of surprising to us, actually, because they reached out to Project Dandelion, was the faith community. And there's now something like 73 million women and men in that faith community who've all become part of the Dandelion movement, who all say, yes, we have a role to play in protecting nature and correcting the damage that we brought to our ecosystems and to our loss of biodiversity.
Hi there, my name is Demian Vega. I have 8 years working for the ranch, but I was involved with the community of the ranch since I was a kid with a nonprofit of the ranch, Fundación La Puerta. And one of the things that I love about Fundación La Puerta is the community outreach. We try to keep our rivers clean every year with the river cleanups. We celebrate the World Environmental Day. Each summer we have these activities with the people and the students from Tecate, and within the park of the ranch gave to the community of Tecate. So we have environmental education. We go and celebrate the culture of taking care about the water, taking care about the trash and Tecate, and not only talking about Tecate, but the other thing that I love about the ranch too is that the ranch since 1940s keep the standards of these environmental practices, using our water healing plant to keep our gardens beautiful, and also farm-to-table practices and regenerative agriculture for our guests too. Preserving more than 3,000 acres around the ranch and for the community too. The ranch does something incredible, not just only for the guests, but for the community of Tecate and beyond.
I hope you're enjoying today's podcast as much as I am. To learn more about our wonderful presenters and exciting weeks coming up at the ranch, go to rancholapuerta.com and check out our events calendar. Make sure to mention the podcast when making your reservation to take advantage of a special offer. Some restrictions may apply. Is there one thing, because I read somewhere that carbon emissions is the number one threat to the climate right now. Is that correct?
Yes, that is true. Yes, carbon emissions, and that there's a lot. If you unpack this whole thing with carbon, there's carbon emissions and there's carbon credits and carbon offsets for all these things, but it all points this overcomplication of what you're saying. Yes, it is carbon emissions. We need to lower our emissions, which means we need to phase out fossil fuel and to really understand. And this is the biggest thing that people want to understand, how collective action can help us get to renewables and to a renewable transition to be able to do the eventual phase out of fossil fuels.
And we do have demands. If you've been on our website, and one of those demands is absolutely phase out fossil fuel. And one of our partners is literally negotiating with governments to make a pledge, to sign a commitment to end fossil fuel use in their countries, because that has to happen. But we also say, along with doing that, shift the money to renewables, to what's going to take us forward. That's just as important.
I think
And then
you hit the nail on the head with if people can see a financial benefit for them,
yeah,
I mean, because that's
yeah.
what's holding back a lot, I think, but why not shift in that direction,
And it works. It
Yeah,
works. I mean, the funds that have done that are showing great returns, as well as the companies that are doing that.
The other
That-
thing is that we really look at is just the subsidies of fossil fuels, just the amount of money that is going to subsidize the fossil fuel industry. If we were to reinvest that, then that would be a really promising sign. But one of the things that Pat said at the beginning of the call is that we are so close. When we look at just how much work has been done now on renewables and the investments that have been made, now we just really need the will of the people to really move it forward over to the other side. And once we can get over to the other side, then the best of times are ahead of us, really just thinking about everything from this new green economy and everything else that's going on once we move to that. And it's like a behavioral game that we really have to get people to shift and see themselves, this connection between story and culture, and how we see ourselves living in this new world in a cultural way that doesn't feel negative, but really rooted in what's best for future generations, which is so much a part of what we really think about.
I want to also mention our work in terms of agriculture, because it turns out, interestingly enough, that one of the most effective and immediate solutions to the nature and climate crisis is regenerative agriculture and forestry. And at Rancho La Puerta, I know they've been practicing regenerative ag in the beautiful gardens and the way that they're feeding the guests who come to the ranch is straight from the food that's been grown in the very best and most natural way possible. Well, that movement is really catching on around the world and being led again, as a lot of frontline solutions are, by women farmers, usually working in small groups, but increasingly getting connected into these collectives. And as that work is scaling up, millions of acres of farmland, which had been destroyed by industrial farming techniques, are now being reclaimed. We're going back to that indigenous wisdom of doing it the way nature intended it to be done. And that's turning out to create new topsoil, to be the best carbon capture on the planet. So we're also saying, let's heed and pay attention to indigenous peoples and communities and what they know and what has worked. And they are still the protectors of 85% of the biodiversity places in the world today.
right. And I mean, I actually interviewed the head of the World Food Group, and she was talking a lot about how also, we need to start eating more vegetarian-like as well, because, so much of a lot of the carbon and methane is coming from animals, and a lot of the food that we're raising is to feed animals. Is not that we can feed the world population. We just need to do it in a smart way. The other thing I also read this is, I think I found this on your website. It's very specific that 43% decrease in carbon emissions by 2030. That was a goal. Is that your goal? 43 is a very specific number, and that's only 5 years away. Is that doable?
Well, so Project Dandelion represents the doers. There's hundreds of who are out there who are doing interventions. And so we look at that as a framework of what is what the collective is doing, not us alone, but what is the collective. And I think that, like any horizon map that you look toward, that is what we're looking to do. It's because we know that one of the things that we want to hold on is 1.5 Celsius. We don't want to go up above that. We know that once we get to 1.5, a lot of things are going to accelerate. So the scientists have told us that in order to get there, we have to do carbon emissions by that time. And I think the point you make is so powerful, which is the time is now. That's what we know. Like we started off, that's the amazing thing when you talk to people who have been in the environmental movement for a long, long time, sort of what their horizon was 20 years ago and what it is today. And we just know we've got to move at such a faster pace than we were moving before. So it's ambitious. It is for sure ambitious. And as Pat said, because the solutions are already out there, we've got to connect them because so much of this work is so fragmented that we have to be able to connect, as Pat was saying, we have to really connect and amplify and mobilize together with speed in a much more organized way than has been done in the past.
Yeah, we are trying to solve for the fragmentation. And Barry, I think it's important to know that we're not the doers. The doers are the people that we are elevating. And by elevating and amplifying their work, hopefully bringing in more funding. So because there's this definite gap between what we know is happening on the ground and what the role in particular women's leadership is making and the funding that's going to it. Because currently less than 2% of climate financing is going to support women-led solutions. And yet those solutions, particularly in the form of agriculture, forestry, but also in renewables, is happening. And if it were better resourced, it would scale much faster. So that number came to us from the women who are literally doing that work on the ground, negotiating to end fossil fuel use and move towards renewables.
Well, both of your backgrounds would explain the gender issues and women, but I can't help not ask about why a woman-led organization, and it's not just women, right? You have men in there too. But
No,
what do you guys
plenty
think
of
that?
that.
Yeah, what do you think that women bring to an organization like this that might be missing with men?
We did start out by saying it was a woman-led, well, we are woman-led because the
Right.
4 partners are all women. And many of the organizations who are our partners, and there are 300 plus, many of them are led by women, but definitely not all. But the way Mary describes it, and I buy into this from all my work on gender equity was never about women's equity only. It was about men and women's equity and equality. But what we're focused on, and the data shows is truth, is that women's way of leading, not all women, you can't make these gross generalizations, but in general, when women are leading companies, when women are leading countries, and there aren't nearly enough of them, but when women are at negotiating tables, that the results for climate and nature are more positive. And that's been proven over and over and over again in every example and case that exists. And part of that is because women are led to be, we move toward problem solving in a different way and moving toward consensus, coalition building, collective action. Some of these things come more easily to many women, not all women.
No, I
But
think
that way of leading, of listening, beginning with that, and then moving forward towards problem solving and coalition and collaboration and getting to a solution tends to characterize the way that a lot of women are leading. And that kind of leading is definitely leading to more positive climate impacts.
I mean, I have to say, Rancho La Puerta is our co-founder. She's 103. She's still here. Her daughter is the CEO and president, Sarah Olivia.
I
And
know,
I
I've
mean,
met them both.
she is, yeah, she puts the environment first and sustainability above all else, even above the bottom line, which I think that's what makes this a magical place to work for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm
love
sorry, were
that
you?
you're both talking about the changing nature of power, right? And if we change the nature of power and we figure out where women have an advantage from being on the front line, then we're in a good position.
But can I say about Deborah, when I first met her, the founder of Rancho La Puerta, she's just so amazing in so many different ways. And she said, well, I look this way and I have all this energy because I've followed an environmentally perfect diet my whole life. Because she had those early activist parents who understood it right away. But it is also what makes Rancho La Puerta very special. And while this may be the first of the sustainability weeks, I feel when I'm there that everything is about sustainability and it always has been. In the ranch's history, the garden, the new water treatment plant. I mean, everything that Sarah and the founder have led has been with a sustainability lens. So,
Right. And I think we
Project
might,
Dandelion is really honored to be a part of this.
yeah. And I think that we're just been ahead of the curve. I think that now it's sustainability is not an option. It is how we have to live our lives now,
Yeah.
for sure.
Right.
You have those few activities that Project Dandelion does. Tell me, what is the click button thing on your website? What is that? Where people can influence their global leaders and power makers.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we do. One, well, first of all, I just want to say one of the things people say is what is Project Dandelion like? And I think in a way
Yeah.
it's similar to breast cancer and the pink ribbon campaign. When you wear the
Wow.
pink ribbon, you know that you are investing in solving for this. And so when we see people who are wearing the dandelions who have been pinned in the dandelions, we've pinned over 15,000 people around the world, then they're a part of it. And you can be a part of the dandelion by joining the Dandelion Digest. So when you click, you can be a part of the Dandelion Digest and follow us and follow along with sort of these shared ideas about what's happening in climate. And you can also follow us on social media. And then we do, during key moments, we do have campaigns that we run. So we just did one between International Women's Day and Earth Day, where we gave people a chance to community viewings for Mary Robinson's film, Mrs. Robinson's, and created it as a time to have a shared conversation around what does it mean to be a bold leader today? That's some of what we're excited to be doing at Rancho La Puerta. But we also create these moments where people can come together in a particular moment to really redirect moving something from where it is now to progressing it forward.
Yeah, Mary used to say there are three basic things everyone can do, and we still say those things, but now we add more context depending on what country they're in because it does vary where the priorities are. I mean, in India, for example, we've been working very specifically with Sewa and getting a heat insurance passed. Never in any country has there been a heat insurance against the workers to
Wow.
protect the workers who are in the field. But that was an innovation Sewa came up with, a self-employed women's alliance who are partners. So now we're taking that message of heat insurance to other partners that we have. So sometimes the activations are very specific, country specific, organization specific. And then there are the general ones that Rhonda mentioned at the beginning. Talk about it. Talk about it all the time. Find the right language that will communicate it to the doubters, to the deniers, in the churches, in the schools, at the family table. And then make it a personal priority. Do something every day that is in some way or the other regenerating. to the planet. And then envision what we want that future to be and move a step towards it every day. So on a personal level, that's what the dandelion kind of reminds me of every day.
Right.
When I put it on, I think, okay, what am I going to do today that is very specifically targeted? So along with those small individual small-scale actions, we also ran a social media campaign right before the COP28, and it reached 1 billion people. And that message, which was 2 years ago now, was it's all interconnected. And no one had really stopped to make that point in the same way that people went, oh, so if I'm working on migrant rights or land rights, I've got to also see that as a nature and climate impact. So that was a campaign that went very large scale.
Right. I mean, when I look at climate issues, I keep thinking, I wish the world looked at itself as one community, not a bunch of separate companies, because or countries, we're all, like you said, interconnected. We're all in this together. And to me, this is the number one priority for the world, not for, and we all make up that world. So.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you guys. I don't want to take a minute. I've been talking to you forever, and I could talk to you forever, but I'm so looking forward to the week coming up, September 27th at Rancho La Puerta, Women in Sustainability. You both will be with us, as well as some other amazing women. So I'm so looking forward to that, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Well, thank you for this interest, and to Rancho La Puerta for this opportunity to help curate, bring the right speakers there, and engage this community even further.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks. And we're just looking forward to meeting the incredible people who come to join us. It's going to be a great week, and we're looking forward to sharing ideas.
I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. Thank you so much. I found today's podcast very enlightening and interesting. One of the great takeaways for me today is there's hope for a healthy and safe planet and environment, but we have to act now. Both Pat and Rhonda talked about technology and knowledge, and that we have all the pieces we need to make the changes we need to make to ensure this future. We just need to connect the right people and the right groups together. We have to start thinking our society as a global society. After all, we're all in this together. We all share the same home, planet Earth. They talked about what we can each do every day. We can make small choices in our lives to help ensure the health of our planet.